A viewer asked us to take off the gloves and be brutally honest about something we don't always like to talk about. How Nelson Chamisa and the late Morgan Tsvangirai reacted to the 2017 coup. Did they support it? Did they resist it? Or were they just playing it safe? Well, since we believe in giving the people what they want, we decided to take a step back and re-examine that moment in history with a fresh, unfiltered perspective. No spin, no sugarcoating, just the raw truth. And by the way, we see those comments because this we also got in the comments. If there's a topic or story you want us to dig into, or if you have audio messages or inputs to add to our stories, feel free to drop them in the comments or send your media to our Telegram channel, which is linked in the description. Your voice matters, and who knows, your take might just be the next big topic we break down. So here we go. The 2017 coup. Ow. The coup that was no coup. That magical moment when Zimbabweans thought their suffering had finally packed its bags and left the country, only to realize it had just changed uniforms. The tanks rolled in. Generals pretended they were fixing the country instead of grabbing power. And the whole nation collectively held its breath, hoping for a miracle. Spoiler alert, the miracle never came. Instead, we got Emmerson Mnangagwa, a man whose leadership style makes Mugabe's 37-year reign look like a golden age. But let's talk about the role of the opposition, specifically Morgan Tsvangirai and Nelson Chamisa, because apparently one of our beloved viewers has asked us, like I said, for an honest take. And here at Zimwaves TV, we deliver the truth even when it stings us. Now, let's set the scene. Robert Mugabe had ruled Zimbabwe for so long that some people genuinely believed he was immortal. He had survived elections, sanctions, economic collapses, and even a 93rd birthday without retiring. But in November 2017, the military, led by General Chiwenga and his band of fatigued, wearing Democrats, decided that enough was enough. Not because Mugabe was a dictator, oh no, they were perfectly fine with that, but because he had started listening to his wife, Grace, a woman whose political ambitions threatened the real power brokers in ZANU-PF. And so, in the dead of night, the tanks moved in. Mugabe was placed under house arrest, and suddenly we were told that this was not a coup. It was just, a military-assisted transition. Zimbabweans desperate for change didn't care about semantics. They flooded the streets in celebration, dancing, singing, and thanking the army for removing the only leader many had ever known. Enter the opposition. Morgan Tsvangirai, ever the statesman, returned from South Africa where he had been receiving medical treatment and called for Mugabe to resign. His tone, measured. His words, chosen carefully. Did he outright support the coup? No. Did he oppose it? Also, no. He took the middle ground, probably realizing that if he openly criticized the military, he might find himself in a situation far worse than being in the opposition. Remember, this was a man who had been beaten to a pulp by Mugabe's security forces in 2007. He knew what ZANU-PF was capable of. and he wasn't about to become collateral damage in a power struggle he had no control over. Then we had Nelson Chamisa, the young and charismatic politician who was quickly rising through the MDC ranks. At the time, he wasn't the leader of the opposition, but he was influential enough to shape narratives. And what did Chamisa do? Well, let's just say he, like many others in the MDC, was cautiously optimistic. He too called for Mugabe to step down. And while he didn't exactly pop champagne with Mnangagwa's people, there was a sense that the opposition saw this as an opportunity. The thinking was simple. If Mugabe was gone, maybe, just maybe, Zimbabwe would have a chance of free and fair elections. Oh, the innocence, the naivety, the belief that Mnangagwa, a man who had spent decades as Mugabe's enforcer, was suddenly going to embrace democracy. And let's not forget the Zimbabwe Grounds rally, where thousands gathered to celebrate Mugabe's downfall. There were opposition figures in that crowd, standing alongside war veterans, activists, and even some ZANU-PF members who had switched sides overnight. It was a bizarre moment in history, one where longtime enemies found themselves momentarily united by a shared desire to see Mugabe go. Chamisa and others in the MDC played along because, well, what choice did they have? Imagine the optics if the opposition had been the only ones saying, wait, this is a coup, we shouldn't support it. They would have been labeled as Mugabe sympathizers, which would have been political suicide. But let's fast forward to today, and let's be honest, hindsight is a cruel teacher. The opposition's failure to outright reject the coup meant that Mnangagwa got a smoother ride into power than he should have. The man took over, gave a few speeches about the new dispensation, convinced some Western diplomats that he was Zimbabwe's Gorbachev, and did what ZANU-PF does best: rig elections, suppress dissent, and loot the country dry. The opposition soon realized that they had traded one dictator for another. Only this time, he was more ruthless, more paranoid, and more desperate to cling to power. So, was Chamisa wrong to cautiously welcome Mugabe's removal? Maybe. But let's not pretend he had any real influence over what was happening. This was a ZANU-PF factional war. The opposition was just a spectator, trying to make the best of a bad situation. Could they have handled it differently? Probably. Would it have changed anything? Absolutely not. Mnangagwa was taking over whether the opposition liked it or not. If there's a lesson to be learned from this, is that in Zimbabwean politics, there are no heroes, only survivors. The opposition did what they thought was necessary at that time. But looking back, supporting a military takeover, no matter how much people hated Mugabe, was like thinking you are being rescued from a burning house, only to realize the guy carrying you out is setting up camp in your living room. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how Zimbabwe ended up where it is today. Mnangagwa is still in power. The economy is still in shambles. And the opposition is still fighting for democracy in a country where democracy is nothing more than just a cruel joke. So to our dear viewer who asked us for an honest take, there you have it. No sugarcoating, no spin, just the brutal truth. And if you are still hoping for a happy ending, you might want to find another country, because Zimbabwe's political script is stuck in an endless loop of betrayal, false hope, and disappointment. Now, before you leave, hit that subscribe button. If Zimbabwe can survive Mnangagwa, you can survive another Zimwaves TV video.